Alright, so in today's video, I'm just going to be doing a basic oil change on my Toyota Celica GT. I'm going to be going through everything you should do and check over on a typical oil change. This varies person to person, but I prefer going through all the fluids, double checking, making sure nothing's leaking. If it is, at least plan to address it, and the basic oil change itself. Alright, so the first thing you should do before you even raise the vehicle, I've already done that, but my car's kind of short, so first thing you should do is check the oil. See what the oil level's already at. Wipe it clean, dip it back in. I have no oil on my dipstick, so I probably have an oil leak somewhere. And that's why you check it, so at least you know, hey, it's leaking somewhere. Alright, next what you want to do is just vent the engine, take the cap off. This just allows it to drain a little bit quicker. Don't have to, but it can make it quicker. Alright, so next what you want to do, grab your ratchet and break the drain plug loose. Then you can just spin it loose with your fingers. And don't be surprised that splashes all over the place. It tends to bounce off this pan. But with the pan placement, you want to put it right under the drain plug, but more towards where it's directed. And from experience, do not be on the side it's directed, because there's a very high chance it can splash up all over your face, and it's not fun to clean up. Next, what you want to do is, I've got this nice filter wrench. It was like $5 at Walmart, and this just grabs onto the filter, and as you loosen, it'll tighten onto the filter. You just want to break it loose with that, and then I recommend spinning it loose, and then it should start leaking and draining. Depends on the filter. Filters do change from vehicle to vehicle, not only in size but in type. So I know it's common with Toyotas and newer vehicles, on some Dodges, that they have paper filters where it's a metal canister and you just change out the paper filter inside. This is just a normal typical metal can filter, where you change out the whole can and it replaces the entire filter that's inside. I'm just going to wait for both of these to drain a bit, and then I'll take the filter all the way off. Gonna spin it off. There we go. Just let that drain. So once you get the filter off, I've got the new filter here. I'm just going to take some oil and wet it around the rubber seal, the rubber gasket, and then spin the new filter on. Another thing to check for before you put this filter on is make sure the gasket of the old one came off. If it by chance did come off and get stuck on the engine and you don't realize before you put the new one on, there's a chance it can cause a leak and you'll lose oil. One more thing with the filter, when you tighten it, just do it hand tight. So make it snug with your hand. It doesn't need to be way over tightened, otherwise it'll be more difficult getting it off later. Now with the filter on, I'm just going to take the drain plug and put that back in. Once you get your plug tightened back up, just with your fingers, take your ratchet and just have it snug. You don't want to go way too tight. So I'm just pushing about medium stiffness, not too hard. I know the drain plug torque on this is actually about 33, which is really not much to crank on. So I'm also just going to take some rags and wipe up the mess I made on the oil pan from stuff dripping around in that. Then once you're all clean, you can take your drain pan and filter out of the way, and you should be all done under here. So now that our filter and drain plug are back in, what I've got here is this 5W30. It's a Valvoline extended protection. Make sure to get the correct grade oil for your vehicle. Typically it will say on the cap, it says SAE 5W30. Some vehicles don't say that, so refer to either your owner's manual or sometimes under the hood it will say. I also know this thing takes 4.5 quarts, but you might need to do some research on that too. Forums are a great way to find that. And what I recommend doing is tilting the bottle sideways to pour. I don't have a funnel on hand, so I'm just gonna be careful. Spilled a little, but not too big of a deal. The tilting it sideways allows the oil to flow out and allow air to flow in, so it doesn't create vacuum pressure and then it glugs and can make it harder to pour. So that's why I recommend just pouring it sideways. Gotta try wiping up the little bit I spilled. So you can put the cap back on now. Now that the oil's added, I'm just gonna check the oil level again. Hopefully this time there'll be actual oil on it. Check it again. And there we go. That's looking good. Now that will lower, because right now I've just poured fresh oil in. When I start it and cycle it, it'll then fill the filter, so that reading will lower a little bit. I've opened my garage door a little bit, and I'm just gonna start my car now. Let it run for a few seconds and check for drips and leaks under the car. You wanna do this because in case you miss the gasket or drain plug's not tight or sealing right, you can catch the drips and leaks now before you run out of oil 20 miles down the road and your engine blows up. All right, there were no drips or leaks, so I'm gonna check the oil level again. Before, I think it was right on the top mark. And yeah, like I thought, right around the middle. Another thing to check for is when you're checking your oil, I don't know if you can quite pick it up, but there is some oil going up to here. That's not the actual reading. If you look, the oil down here is going all the way across, and if you flip it over on the back side, it is too. So you wanna look for that even marking, which means it's been dipped in the oil. The other oil on the sides is just residual oil in the pickup tube. All right, so the other thing I recommend checking is all your other fluids. So here I've got my coolant, which I can see on the side looks good. I've got my windshield washer fluid. I'd recommend topping that off if you got some. I've also got brake fluid back here I'm gonna check. That's looking good. And then on this side, I've got my power steering fluid. Now I know my power steering fluid, I think was having a leak because it was a bit low and it was looking a bit wet near the pump. So I'm just gonna dip it in and check. And yeah, it's looking pretty full, so we should be good there. Now that you're all done underneath, and I've already finished up top too, you can lower your vehicle back down. And as long as you've checked everything in the engine bay and make sure you've tightened the drain plug and filter, and every cap in the engine bay you open is back closed, and everything looks good, you should be able to close your hood and you should be all set to go. One last note to add with your oil. This is the bad old oil. I've actually got 2 filters because I did an oil change on my CBR 600. I'll be making a video on that later once I get more parts for it. But do not just throw this outside and throw the filters in the garbage. Bring it to either an auto parts store, might be able to help you with that. Otherwise, I know my local Walmart or any mechanic should be able to dispose of it. They might just require you to log down how much quarts it is. In this case, it's about 8. I think anything over 5 gallons, you have to take it to a bigger facility, but this should be good. And as long as you dispose of it after your oil change, everything should be fine. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Hopefully this helps out anyone new doing oil change. I know there's a million videos on this, but I thought might as well give my input. As long as all your fluids are good, your vehicle should survive. And what I recommend doing is checking all the fluids, every oil change when you do the oil. Also, if you know how to read tires, I recommend checking your tires If not, just take it to a tire shop. They should be able to tell you how good your tires are. Should be all set, and drive safe.